It's great to have you join us on this episode of Politics HQ on News Central TV. These are the stories that made our headlines. Now, Justice James Omotosho of the Federal High Court in Abuja has officially proscribed the Lukarawa sect, declaring it a terrorist organization. The ruling followed an ex parte application filed by the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Lateef Fagbemi. The court extended the proscription to similar groups operating in Nigeria, particularly in the northwest and north-central regions, citing their involvement in terrorism-related activities such as banditry, kidnapping, and mass abduction. Justice Omotosho ordered the publication of the proscription in the official gazette and national dailies, emphasizing the need to curb activities for national peace and security. The motion was moved by the Assistant Director of the Federal Ministry of Justice, David Kaswe, supported by evidence detailing the sect's involvement in acts of terrorism and undermining constituted authority. The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, has accused the federal government of Nigeria of prioritizing revenue generation over citizens' welfare following the recent 50% increase in telecom tariffs. The tariff hike approved by the Nigerian Communications Commission will see major telcos charge more for calls and messages. While telcos cite inflation and a 300% rise in operating costs, the NLC has condemned the move, warning it will worsen poverty for Nigerians already struggling with the high cost of living. The NLC President Joajero criticized the government for acting in favor of telecom companies rather than regulating to protect citizens. He warned that the increase would disproportionately affect low-income earners and urged the government to focus on local production of telecom equipment to reduce cost. The NLC is considering nationwide protest and boycotts, while the National Association of Telecommunications Subscribers is engaging the NCC to push for a reduction of the hike to 10%. However, tonight on the program, we delve into two major perspectives. Telecom tariff hike. Is the government putting profits over people? Amaechi Asugwuni, former Deputy President of the NLC, weighs in on this. Also, SERAP's ultimatum. Can President Bola Tinubu reverse the 50% tariff hike? Kolawole Oluwadare, the Deputy Director of SERAP, joins me on the program. Welcome. I am Dakpo Adigboye. Let's get some answers. The Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, has approved a 50% telecom tariff hike due to the significant gap between operational cost and current tariffs. This decision aims to address the financial struggles faced by telco operators, now including major operators in the industry which have been impacted by the devaluation of the naira and rise in inflation. The NCC considered ongoing industry reforms that will positively influence sustainability in the country and recognize the concerns of the public, including the financial pressure faced by Nigerian households and businesses. However, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has given President Bola Tinubu an ultimatum of 48 hours to reverse the recent 50% tariff hike on telcos services. SERAP considers the hike unlawful and warns it will take legal action if the decision is not reversed within the given time frame. In the same vein, the Nigerian Labour Congress, the NLC, has vowed to fight the recent 50% telecom tariff hike approved by the Nigerian government. Now, the NLC described the hike as insensitive and callous, stating that it will worsen the economic hardship faced by Nigerians. Now, just to give you an idea of what the average Nigerian goes through in terms of the current economic reality, News Central's Bettina Nwili put together a package to sort of highlight the cost of living in Nigeria. Take a listen.
The increased cost of living in Lagos, Nigeria has had a lot of people thinking twice. Sellers are complaining about the reduced number of buyers that they have, and buyers are also complaining about the inflation in the cost of prices of foodstuff. But we entered the streets of Lagos to ask people how they are faring and what they would like the government to do, and to also find out what is the root cause of this inflation when it comes to foodstuff. At local markets across the city, vendors and shoppers alike are voicing their frustrations. Prices of staples like rice, garri, and beans have seen a staggering increase over the past 3 months.
Though it varies, we have garri of 5,000 naira, we have of 3,000, depends on your choice. It was actually 3,250. So, but as at now, we sell it for 5,000 naira. Sales has dropped drastically. It has dropped because even with the few people that buys now, we actually give credit to them because it's not easy. It's not easy anywhere right now.
Before, I say carrots 200, 300. Now, the tights for 1,500. Because it's cost, people no go complain to you. So, people they crying. They tell say Nigeria beating cost. Because I say leave, you want only these beetroots, you know go spell. This one, if I put water, remains more time. If people no buy, you go spell.
Pátápátá sí bó ṣe wà tẹ́lẹ̀tẹ́lẹ̀ rúgbà ká máa ra basket tomato ní 15,000, 12,000 èrò wọn nìyẹn pé kó wálẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀.
It's not funny, so I try to cope with my family. I have a wife, I have kids and all that, you know. But since things has gone high, you have to adjust your daily spendings so you'll be able to accommodate the other expenditure that will come in.
Everybody that adjusts now. You go chow first morning food around 12. Another one at night too. No 3 square meal again.
Analysts point to several factors fueling inflation, including the effects of global supply chain disruptions.
And here in Nigeria, we also have not, prepared or done enough to mitigate the shortage of food. And so while you have so much money in the hands of people, there is not enough food for them to buy. The rural areas must be made attractive. The quality of life in those areas must be improved so that our young ones will be attracted to farming, because farming is seen as a misfortune, it's seen as a punishment. We need to do a lot of things. The ideas are numerous, but Nigeria must pick among the many ideas that are available to it the best suited for our client. But food inflation must be stemmed.
As Lagosians continue to navigate these challenging times, the hope remains that targeted interventions will bring relief and stabilize the economy. In Lagos, for News Central, I'm Bettina Nwili.
Of course, that particular package that you just saw was put together by News Central's Bettina Nwili to show you the reality Nigerians are going through when it comes to the cost of living. And this, of course, is coming vis-a-vis another development where, another basic essential, which is has to do with the telco sector that involves calls and data, saying that, you know what, we cannot continue to operate with the current rate. We need to jack it up, and we are looking at 50%. The big question is, how will this impact on the pockets and also spending or purchasing power of Nigerians that are currently trying to grapple with the economic reality? We'll go on a quick break. When we return, we'll have our guest discuss this. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. This, of course, is still Politics HQ on News Central Television. And just to remind us, what we are discussing at this time is recent development where, of course, telcos will jack up their tariff price by 50% given the current economic realities that they also are facing, saying that it's not sustainable for them charging subscribers or customers at this current rate and still remain in business. Well, joining me to discuss this development is the former Deputy President of Nigerian Labour Congress and an industrial and labor relations expert, Amaechi Asugwuni. He joins me live in the studio. It's great to have you again. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
All right, let's get to it. Now, the Nigerian Labour Congress has vowed to fight this recent 50% telecom tariff hike approved by the Nigerian Communications Commission, which of course the NLC has described as insensitive and callous. What do you make of this recent development by this sector, given the current economic reality?
You know, sometimes when we talk of policy formulation, we talk about ideas to stabilize the sector, and whenever it results to hike in price of any commodity or service that eventually is paid by the masses, what comes to mind is the masses are the one funding the organizations. And if that is the case, who fund the masses? It's a situation whereby government in itself knows that policies currently are not in favor of Nigerians. Economy is not favoring anyone. And therefore, people are hustling to sustain 2 square meals per day in this country. And people must communicate. And so when we talk about telecom industry, we are talking about Nigeria. There's no family in Nigeria that does not rely in this sector to earn a successful life. And therefore, when we talk of hiking price, Nigeria Labour Congress will react because members are going to pay when their salary is constant. So any idea or pattern that leads to increase in price of commodities eventually demand more from the pocket of workers. Beyond workers now, we're talking about ordinary Nigerians who eventually will be paying this money without necessary options for them to get their salary or source of income increase. So this, I think, is insensitive, and I believe government should do everything possible to adjust in this regard.
All right. At this point, let's, of course, look at what the telco price per minute, should that increase take effect. We are looking at a 50% increase where maybe per minute the call rate would jack up to about 16.5 naira per minute from the previous 10 to 11 naira per minute thereabout. And of course, this was rub off into data. We know that Nigerians consume data, a lot. So maybe you are maybe you are paying 1,000 naira, for a certain amount of data. You might either have them drop the data capacity or jack up the price if they choose to sustain that data capacity, as it were. So, but you have made some points. But let's also look at it from the part of the players in the industry. These guys, many of them claim to earn in local currency, but spend in foreign currency. They earn in naira, that's from Nigerians, but spend in dollars, particularly when it comes to upgrading some of their equipment, acquiring some equipment that maybe, got damaged or outdated. And then you look at this imbalance vis-a-vis what the cost of naira to the dollar was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even a year ago, compared to what it is now. How sustainable is it for these guys to still stay in business just like every other Nigerian company?
There is something that we operate in this country and we don't pay attention to the cause of our problems. Federal government has a duty in business. And for every sector to emerge successful, federal government will play its part by making available sources of this software. Do you know that in this country, when we talk about a cable in terms of what they classify as owned by South Africa, that Nigerians can no longer watch any channel that is actually produced by this country. If you go locally, your TV will not be clear. You go online, it will be clear, but the source is outside Nigeria. So it becomes shameful that the servers that should be serving these people is not regulated from the country. So when they say they pay in dollar, they are referring to possible maintenance. They're referring to backup, that is the end point of their service. But we are saying, what is the role of government to making some of these things possible that the price will be affordable by customers who are Nigerians? I tell you, anytime you see players of industry complain of hardship in terms of cost of maintenance, you know that there is absence of government in the sector. Because whatever that is needed to set sectors standing firm, government has a role to play.
But it's a completely privatized sector. We know that before it was, the NITEL and what have not. But since that policy came into effect, it opened it up for businessmen. And I mean, the role of government as of now in that sector is pretty much minimal, maybe just as a regulator, but not necessarily controlling, their modus operandi, per se.
That sector needs power more than any sector, for example. So there's no way you prioritize any sector without you playing the role. Obligation of government cannot be taken away. Provision of power is a minimum for any sector, not to talk of telecom. You can't shut, you see any of their mini or units based of where they have their local antenna that supply network. They power them with independent generators in those local areas. You see in every platform, you see a generator beneath. So that ought not to be. And these are the costs they are relating to. So cost of sustaining their business to offer you price per minute is what they are now seeing that is very unrealistic, that they will make the adequate, attainable profit in their heart. Government should be called upon to make these provisions such that the payment for power will be less for this sector. In that regard,
so are you suggesting a subsidy, let's say, for power for that sector? Is that what, from the government?
If I call for subsidy, it will be a temporary solution. We should rather cure that problem of power for Nigerians, at the same time, it serve other sectors. Because you may be looking at telecom today, other sectors will tell you they need more power to function efficiently. Yes, because we're talking about industrializing Nigeria. Telecom is a stable sector that is already standing. The competition there is fair enough to give us a good price, but there are sectors in this country that have no presence of government. And that is why what we consume in this country we cannot produce. So government should stop shying away from having duty in business that will make production. If we cannot produce, that is why you see every sector will tell you they are demanding dollar more than they need naira. And the common sense will tell you that anybody that demands foreign currency more than your local currency cannot prosper as a nation. They tell you that until you have enough to eat and sufficient to supply to other countries, you can't earn their income. So you can't earn their currency.
Unfortunately, that is the reality, because some of these individual players too will tell you that some of their equipment is not even manufactured here. They have to bring it in, right? And then they have to pay the local currency of whichever country they are bringing it from. Well, most of it comes from the US, the UK. Of course, we know that the dollar seems to be the universal currency being spent here. So it's not entirely their fault. So how do you suggest that this loophole, this is the reality, how can it be solved or maneuvered?
See, every country, no country is totally independent, even the US. People must depend on another to succeed. But there's what we call comparative advantage. What can you classify that Nigeria has advantage over in the market that we all possibly shop from? Nigeria lack capacity in terms of technical know-how, and it has placed us behind in all the sectors. So what we are saying today is, yes, equipment, there are countries that depend only on equipment production, and that is where they enjoy their comparative advantage. And that makes them earners of revenue by such. Now, if we can buy equipment, but we don't have the economic system that will survive that equipment in terms of power, because every equipment needs power. If you have power and you have technical know-how in terms of human ability to operate the same machine, it's cheaper. It's cheaper to work with locals in every country than to call them foreigners. Because the people who call expatriates in Nigeria, it means that when a Nigerian also go to US, you become an expatriate to any organization you serve. So what I am advocating is government must play their role by making certain provisions available, and let them be as minimum. In this case now, I tell you, if government had played this role beyond telecom sector to cushioning the effect of hardship that resulted to the hike of petrol, which in return now is affecting all sectors. People are trying to get used to buying fuel at 1,000. It's unfortunate. And this is now returning to touch the entire Nigeria.com. And this is a sector that people will not know the danger of this hike in price. I tell you, Nigerians have not taken time to analyze the consequence of this hike in price that is going to limit communication, is going to result to conflict in families, is going to bring about hate that if compound together eventually will constitute a protest that you will say, could this be coming from telecom? Because you are provoking our families unknowingly. This is not like petrol. This is more dangerous, that people will begin to flash now than calling. And that tells you that every family will start discussing this government. Who has put us into this mess?
I mean,
so government must do the needful in ensuring that the provision needed by telecom, let them shield them. Let them make, if it's a temporary subsidy for power, they should do something.
I mean, initially the conversation was around even 100% hike before I guess a back and forth happened, and then they settled for 50. I mean, just looking at the broad implication of this hike, we know that a lot of small businesses, what you would categorize as small or emerging businesses, are dependent on data. I'm talking about 10 million plus young Nigerians, from hair vendors to makeup artists to influencers to, I mean, emerging businesses, so to speak. Some of them are even pretty much established, depend on data. And this data, you know, is provided by this telecom. So this effect definitely will trickle down. I would like you to speak on this vis-a-vis the current reality when it comes to also the cost of feeding and even the cost of daily maintenance. What are we looking at in the coming weeks? Should this take effect?
If this proposal stands as is being outlined, it's going to result to so many disadvantages. And it will include high costs of services by consultants. It's going to result to an unkept economy, because whether you like it or not, all over the country is being driven by technology. And no technology can be effective without data.
Even students study online.
Even students now, they carry out most of the assignment online. People engage online as to strengthen students that are waiting exam. And we are talking about parents funding this means. So in my family, I fund data provision for children separate from my own self-data for my business. And that means that now that they are increasing the tariff, it's going to cut across all the independent organizations, especially in the private sector, who in return will put it back on the masses. Every organization that experiences hike in price, that's why they tell you, a businessman does not believe it's tough for him. Because for every change in price of source of material, it will be added into the production cost and eventually retire it to the product. And the workers will start saying, I bought this one for 2,000 last week, today now it's 4,000. They will still buy, because there are products that must be consumed irrespective of the hike in price. Essential goods fall into that category. And it means that if telecom now does this, I doubt anybody that will stop using phone. But people will find a way to push this price back to somebody. And somebody will push it to somebody. And it will still go back to the poorest to suffer. The rich will not have the effect. Some people have not even, some people on their phone, they've not witnessed absence of credit for the past 10 years. So they don't even know what you're talking about, because organization is paying for them. Some people take allowance of their core credit on monthly basis. And as you increase, they will increase. But there are categories of workers. There are categories of informal Nigerians who eventually depend on their sole business. And if you do this to them, you have injured their full plan for the year.
So are you saying there shouldn't be a hike at all, or the percentage is outrageous?
I am just not comfortable how we treat issue of prioritizing organization hiking price of services and products before we now react to the effect to Nigerians. It's very unfortunate. Government has fallen victim of this severally, that when negotiation is ongoing, Telecom would have made this proposal. Economists should have also given the background of the effect of this action, advice that the aftermath of this policy or this hike in price will result to XYZ. In that case, put those measures in place. So that as you roll out this policy of hike in price, you are equally telling Nigerians what you have done to cushion the effect on the people. You can't do palliative for this, because it's not small. Telecom 50% charge is not small. It's going to eat into a constant wage or source of income that people have programmed. And the worst thing is coming from every family, every household who pay this price. And as they pay this price, it's a negative news. Because you are not doing anything to better their life. You are not doing anything to increase the wage of the husband, neither the wife. You are not doing anything to reduce the school fees of the children. Rather, you are increasing cost. And data issue and airtime is a daily cost, not weekly. It's a daily cost. So if you check what constitutes of this change in average family or per person, look at 230 million of Nigeria. Over 180 million of Nigerians operate phone. And as such, those are the people Nigerian policy is addressing. These are the people Telecom is threatening. And I tell you, if they try to be calm, they will not be calm for too long.
All right, I mean, there you have it on your screen. A sort of breakdown there of, I want that graphics to come up again, a breakdown of what the impact of this 50% hike, price might just look. Should this take effect on your call, SMS, and data? So you might just find yourself paying, this is not, maybe a little, not a little anyway, a bit more, for any of these services. Should you choose to use it? Well, depending on the network, I also think. But let's go on a quick break. When we return, we'll look at another angle to this conversation. It's the Nigerian government putting profits over the welfare of Nigerians. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. Of course, this is still Politics HQ on News Central Television, and we are looking at the recent tariff review for telcos when it comes to using their services. Calls, data, SMS, you might just see it go up by 50%. I still have Amaechi Asugwuni, is the former Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress and an industrial and labor relations expert. He joins me physically in the studio. Thank you for staying with me. Now, we know that the Nigerian government has set an ambitious revenue target of over 34 trillion naira, for 2025, according to President Bola Tinubu's presentation, of the 2025 appropriation bill to the National Assembly. We're also aware that a bulk of this revenue comes from tax, tariffs, and duties across sectors, one of which is the telecommunications sector. Now, we've also seen that many of these sectors too have been placed on some sort of revenue drive. So all of this, for many experts, they'll say, is at the expense of the average Nigerian. So my question to you is this: looking at all of these policies and the targets of the government, of the day, does it appear that as if the government is putting profit over the welfare and well-being of Nigerians?
It's obvious, because Nigerian government over time has considered that when they generate revenue at all costs, that it constitutes achievement. And any achievement...
Isn't it an achievement?
It is only achievement when you don't pass the burden to the masses. And if you do pass the burden to the masses, you must define the temporal state of that burden. Otherwise, it means you are not in control of the economy. Any actor who is in control of the economy would already know the effect of any policy and advises on the temporal measure. If it's in the long run, he will tell you, and if it's in the short run, they will know. In this case, federal government is looking at revenue target. They are afraid to look at the consequence on the people. Because revenue to do what? in the first place? If the revenue is not to better the life of Nigerians, then who are you working for? So I still believe that the idea of government setting unrealizable target and then using Nigerians to pay the price when you have not also provided the basic amenities for the people, it means democracy is actually not being fed by the people. Because the dividend of democracy is such that the social provisions, social amenities, all these basic amenities like water, power, should be free. Do you know why I keep saying it? That the reason you see workers demanding wage at every instance of hike in price is because they are the one paying from their pocket. If you had made life easy by making some of these things free, that I don't need to pump water in my house with my generator.
Now, some would argue that across the world they pay for these things.
They pay, government provides. In this case, I bought my generator. I will buy my diesel. At the same time, majority of Nigerians are still paying estimated billing. So in this country, we don't have stability when it comes to those provisions. If government makes water available, makes power available, make road available, and you are looking at some of these things, people pay more than this in some countries. This, when we talk about corresponding the increment to what applies in other nations in Europe, you will see that we're paying less. But the question is, when you go to Europe, you will see the life they live. That government is hosting 90% of provision of what constitutes life for the people. So in this case, they are prioritizing wage over the welfare of Nigeria. And if you prioritize revenue over the welfare of the people you govern, without necessarily defining the moment for which the consequence will last, then we say you are failing. As far as I'm concerned, this policy is not wise, because they ought to know what comes first. It's like the removal of first subsidy. The first subsidy is gone, but the problem is not gone. This again, we're entering increment on telecom tariff. And then the question now is who suffers, and that for how long will the suffer last?
Let's also look at a recent report that Nigeria's debt profile, has skyrocketed to over 187 trillion naira. I mean, some broke it down to say that an average Nigerian, each Nigerian right now owes about 700,000. If you had to break it down, across Nigerians, and then you look at this figure, right, in tandem with some of the policies of this current administration and the justification for some of those policies. We know that when subsidy was removed, they said they wanted to divest that money into other sectors. Part of it also includes debt servicing. But then you are seeing a figure like this, and you are asking questions as to what is going on here.
It's a problem of governance. And this problem will only be cured when we eventually get it right from the head. You can have a vision, but application of vision.
Does this figure, I'm sorry, sir, does this figure, in terms of the debt stock of over 187 trillion naira, breaking it down to about 700,000 naira per Nigerians, the highest we've seen in the history of this country, does it justify the removal of fuel subsidies, sir?
It further put the government into answering query from Nigerians that the removal of subsidy was meant to minimize borrowing, so that we would have raised revenue by virtue of subsidy removal. Now, the debt is increasing on quarterly basis in such a quantum that is difficult to admire. The National Assembly approve some of this loan as though they have share in it. It's a threat, because everyone will account for its obligation. Federal government cannot justify that the removal of subsidy has resulted to the increment in the debt. And it means also that there is no end to it, because IMF and other sources of this loan knows very well that the more they borrow, the more they make it difficult to finish paying this loan, and you will be at the mercy of IMF to dictate the policy that should work for Nigeria. And those policies are anti-people. Those policies are not confirming our freedom so soon. Policies of IMF is to remain slave to the foreign countries, such that this our idea of import what we consume will continue. And government wish to stop it, but they still need more money. I tell you, before the end of the second quarter of this year, not the first quarter, second quarter of this year, you will see that we'll be looking at 200 billion.
So you're saying we are still going to borrow more?
They will borrow. They will borrow. And the one funny thing is, the National Assembly that's supposed to be the voice of Nigeria, the state at which they receive this loan and the speedy approval they give to it tells you that we don't even have leadership, especially from the Senate. We don't have leadership. Very funny, man.
Under the current leadership.
Fabio. So you see somebody...
You're saying it doesn't have leadership.
The charisma of Senate president to interrogate in order to make a president of this country sit up in terms of figures, it does not have.
I know that during the tenure of Lawan, they were using the word rubber stamp.
Exactly the same thing is planned. That is, I think, I would say they are twins in terms of trying to please the president at the expense of this country. Have you seen the seriousness of Akpabio when he's actually addressing the plenary? They received this, he announced it to the floor. The next thing you hear is approval. In fact, if people seem to talk strong, they will look at them as if they are against the president. People who actually debate these things are the ones teaching the president the right way to go. If you like me, tell me what the masses will resist. Right. So I think in that regard, we need our institutions to be strong.
We need to go on a break.
But that is our only way to achieve a better democracy.
We need to go on a break. When we return, of course, we'll pick up from where we stopped. Stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. It's still Politics HQ on New Central Television. And we are looking at the recent review in Telecom Tariff for Nigerians, about 50%. How will this impact on the average Nigerian? I still have Amaechi Asugwuni, the former Deputy President of the Nigerian Labour Congress and an industrial and labor relations expert. Thank you for staying with me, sir. Before I let you go, in 30 seconds, the NLC is saying that if a reversal is not done, there could be a protest or a boycott of this, to show dissatisfaction with this initiative. My question to you is this in 30 seconds. How realistic is this, and will this have any impact?
It will have impact because I still believe that the 50% will not stand. Anything 50% is taking Nigerians for granted, and it's not NCC saying it. Nigerians should be given that notice. Little things should enable us to achieve significant things. When they think that tariff is too small, then that is when you tell them that entire Nigerians need tariff to live their life. And when Nigerians engage government, they will know that truly democracy is about the people.
But does this administration look like one that listens? I mean, looking at the previous protests and strike actions that have happened.
It depends on the strategy behind every action. When strategy is targeted not to unseat government, but to push government to do the needful, the government of Tinubu will listen. It has no choice. Democracy brought you to power. Democracy can demand you to make a change. And I believe in engagement of the people. It's only voice that the masses have. They don't have money. And when they speak, the volume of their speech silence the rich. And I know very well that when the masses are collective in anything they demand before government, there is no amount of strength. If we watch other countries that have seen it, when the masses are out, forget about this syndrome of people advising children to stay back. When the people are truly touched by policy that negates their future, a policy that negates their integrity, a policy that is against even the life of anybody in this country, you see Nigerians coming together to speak a common language, and that common language will be a reversal of that policy. 50% cannot stand. And if NCC let it go, it will count against them. They will not.
Amaechi Asugwuni, thank you so much for your time on the program. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Dakbo.
All right. At this point, we, of course, call it a day. Thank you so much for being a part of the program today. In case you missed out, you can actually catch up on our YouTube platform. That's News Central TV. You can choose to follow us across social media with the same handle. It's on your screen there. You can also choose to follow me personally at Dakbo at Digboyi. Until I come your way again, good night.